Welcome to Night Chemistry, your candlelit refuge beneath the stars. Here we mix gentle science with soothing storytelling to guide you into restful sleep. Tonight's journey is a detective mystery tale entitled The Case of the Vanishing Vial. Find a comfortable position, soften your breath, and let your thoughts dissolve like mist in moonlight. Prologue, The Cursed Vial. A hush falls over the marble-pillared foyer of Vienna's Imperial Science Hall as the final keynote of the International Toxicology Symposium draws to a close. Rows of glass display cases glow under Art Deco chandeliers, each holding vials of rare compounds, some too lethal to handle outside a vacuum chamber. Scholars mingle in evening attire, raising crystal flutes of elderflower spritzer while discussing metabolic pathways instead of market prices. At precisely 2100 hours, Professor Eric Schultz, celebrated pioneer of anti-neurotoxin therapies, steps onto the demonstration dais. He is expected to reveal an upgraded anesthetic based on classic chloroform. Instead, he places a frost-rimmed vial at center stage, its label handwritten in neat German script. Chloroform, CCl3. He smiles, offers a short preamble about medical history, and removes the stopper so the audience can observe proper safety protocols in real time. A faint aroma drifts outward. Several seasoned chemists share puzzled glances. Chloroform should exude a sweet, heavy scent. This carries a sharp marine edge, more like ozone after summer rain. Schultz pauses, nostrils flaring. His brow tightens. He reaches for the vial again, then staggers. The conference lights flicker. Security shutters descend along the hall's stained glass windows, sealing the room. By the time they rise, exactly 60 seconds later, Schultz has vanished. In his place, the same vial, now one-third empty, resting inside a shallow ring of condensation that eats into the polished oak lectern. Chief Inspector Arthur Langley arrives before the panic fully blooms. Tall, lean, trench coat smelling faintly of acetone, he surveys the scene while others shout for medics. He ignores the chaos, focusing on details that speak in chemical tongues. A crescent of crystals glitters where vapor cooled on marble tile. A single glove, left hand, size medium, latex, lies 5 meters from the dais, interior stained violet. Air-handling louvers churn at maximum extraction, yet Langley's portable gas chromatograph blares a silent red, detecting trace parts per billion of an unidentified heterocycle. He unsnaps a quartz vial from his belt and captures the lingering fumes. The handheld device hums. Peaks rise on its microdisplay, jagged and unfamiliar. Langley mutters to himself. No residual chloroform, no chlorinated methane signature at all. Someone rewrote the label and the molecule. A uniformed guard blocks his path, demanding credentials. Langley flicks open his wallet, revealing neither badge nor passport, but a laminated NMR spectrum signed by Interpol's Chemical Forensics Unit. The guard steps aside. Underneath the podium, Langley spots a folded sheet of graph paper. It shows an NMR plot with irregular spikes, annotated in pencil with dots and dashes. An encoded message embedded within noise. He pockets it calmly. With a measured breath, he turns to the event director, Wolfgang Heinitz, who is barking orders at technicians. "Sir," Langley says, voice cool, "I require an isolation chamber, full spectroscopic suite, and exactly 48 hours. Professor Schultz is alive, but only if we trace the chemistry before the compound metabolizes." Heinitz hesitates, weighing protocol against the detective's unblinking certainty. Finally, he nods, signaling staff to clear Lab Suite B. Langley glances once more at the half-empty vial. The liquid inside refracts the chandelier light into a ghostly violet halo. He whispers a note to himself. Tdx-M, synthetic tetrodotoxin analog, smell of ionized seawater, rapid hydrolysis, zero forensic footprint. The countdown begins. Chapter 1. The trail of the first 10 milliliters. Arthur Langley sealed a half-empty vial inside a vacuum-locked canister and strode into Lab Suite B, an austere white cube tucked beneath the conference hall. Banks of spectrometers hummed like distant cicadas. Overhead lamps bathed the stainless steel benches in stark, surgical light. He set the canister in a fume hood, tapped a code, and the hood's glass shield descended with a hiss. Moments later, the internal sampler pierced the silicone septum, siphoning the faintest wisp of vapor into a micro-gas chromatograph. Langley watched the display populate. Dozens of peaks, none aligning with chloroform's signature. Peak at 2.73 minutes, he murmured, swiping to overlay reference spectra. Nitrogen heterocycle, odd electron pattern. But where's the telltale sodium adduct? The assistant on duty, a doctoral student in emerald scrubs, hovered nervously. Dr. Langley, security says we have only 15 minutes before they need the initial incident report. Tell them chemistry sets the clock, not administrators. He pointed to the chromatogram. We need a cryotrap, so we don't lose the first 10 milliliters of headspace. That's where the dopant hides. The student sprinted off. Langley turned to the sample carousel. He'd already placed the stray latex glove and the crescent of floor crystals into numbered vials. Under a stereo microscope, the crystals resolved into octagonal plates tinged indigo, a dye, not a reagent. He scraped one shard into a capillary tube, then slid it under a Raman spectroscope. A violet laser flickered. Spectra unfolded like staves of music. A single, strong band at 1, 545 cm superscript 1, phthalocyanine backbone. Someone planted a tracer dye, he noted in his field log. Phthalocyanine derivative typically used as an optical pH sensor, invisible to the eye until exposed to alkaline moisture, like condensation on oak. He glanced at the conference timetable. Professor Schultz's talk was the only live demo scheduled. Every other exhibit was sealed glass. Whoever swapped the vial needed less than 3 minutes and intimate knowledge of the ventilation cycle. The student returned with a cryotrap, a fist-sized silver coil cooled with dry ice. Langley integrated it into the GC inlet and reran the sample. This time a previously hidden peak blossomed. M/Z equals 320, base peak 147. Fragmentation pattern screaming guanidinium groups. Tetrodotoxin skeleton, but methylated and ring-closed, he whispered. Synthetic, high volatility, hydrolyzes to nothing in plasma. He overlaid the fresh spectrum with the ragged printout the kidnapper had left. An NMR plot dancing with irregular spikes. The M/Z values paired with chemical shifts like lock and key. The message wasn't merely a taunt. It was an index, coordinates the reagents, perhaps even an antidote. Langley keyed an encrypted call. Control Langley. Confirmed. Novel analog of tetrodotoxin. Airborne exposure plausible. Secure conference ventilation logs for the last 6 hours and run attendee list against anyone who's purchased guanidinium reagents in the EU this quarter. Copy, but Vienna PD wants your preliminary hazard assessment. Tell them victims will show no trace after 30 minutes. We need metabolic panels now. He ended the call, pivoted to the assistant. Prepare LC-MS on the glove residue. I want binding protein data before the hour is out. Alarm suddenly chirped. Unauthorized access at the conference's reagent storeroom. Langley's eyes narrowed. They're cleaning their tracks. Lock down every solvent corridor. He pocketed the folded NMR sheet, its dots and dashes still glaring at him like a Morse lighthouse in the storm. First 10 milliliters, he whispered. Always point a hand that poured them. The chase had begun. Chapter 2. Poison Without Markers. Detective Arthur Langley spent the rest of the night tracing a scent that no instrument could fully name. By dawn, the Imperial Science Hall had transformed from gala venue to quarantine zone. Yellow barriers wrapped the foyer. Every attendee queued for metabolic screening. Journalists buzzed outside like wasps around a sweet beaker. Inside the makeshift infirmary, Langley reviewed the first blood panels on a tablet. White cell counts were ordinary, liver enzymes calm. Nothing pointed to a neurotoxin. Exactly what Tdx-M was designed to ensure. He slipped through a curtain into Observation Bay 3. where Dr. Lily Kozar sat in rumpled conference black tie, hugging a styrofoam coffee as if it were life support. Kozar had been Professor Schultz's closest collaborator. "They say he vanished into thin air," she whispered, voice raw. "Nothing vanishes," Langley replied. "It dissolves, diffuses, or decays. Chemistry knows no magic tricks." He placed a half-lit tablet on her lap. "Look, zero chloroform metabolites, but trace carbonyl sulfide. Someone swapped a compound hours before the demo. Did Schultz confide in you about a new analog?" Kozar's eyes flicked toward the ceiling vents. "He called it Tdx-M, a methyl-bridge tetrodotoxin. He hoped to tame for microanesthesia. He delayed publication until an antidote was perfect." She rubbed her temples. "We were this close." Langley produced a folded NMR sheet, the Morse-coded spectrum. Does his handwriting ring a bell? Kozar scanned the dots and dashes hidden in noise peaks, then gasped. "It's a security phrase. Alpha Daro Pyrotomicron Nu Mu Beta Lambda Pi Epsilon Iota Nu. Physician, do no harm." He must have encoded lab coordinates or reagent tags here. They adjourned to the analytical suite. On the bench sat the glove from the crime scene, now dissolved in buffer. Kozar ran the sample through LC-MS. 2 minutes later, the monitor bloomed with colored bars. "Langley, see those twin fragments at M/Z 162 and 180? Classic guanidinium split. But the spacer carbon is gone. The molecule self-immolates after binding sodium channels. No leftover markers in blood." Kozar, hence poison without markers. Brilliant and terrifying. Langley tapped the phthalocyanine tracer peak. Yet the saboteur added dye. Why leave breadcrumbs? Kozar's brow knitted. Unless Schultz planted the dye himself, to track the vial in case of theft. A silent alarm flashed on Langley's wristcom. Ventilation logs received. Every duct sensor registered a 2-minute spike in ozone levels at 2059. The exact moment Schultz unstopped the vial. "Ozone is a byproduct," Langley mused. "Tdx-M oxidizes in humid air. Whoever planned this knew the hall's purge cycle would scrub the evidence." He requested high-bandwidth remote access to the lab in which Schultz and Kozar had been perfecting the antidote. Its freezer inventory pinged back. One sample missing. A refrigerated ampoule labeled Meberdine ACT4. An opioid skeleton tweaked to outcompete Tdx-M at the sodium gate. Kozar said, "If the kidnapper got that too, they control both sword and shield." Langley clicked the spectrum into focus, overlaying it with the Morse-encoded NMR. Peaks aligned at regular intervals. Chemical shifts plotted like longitude and latitude. A set of coordinates emerged. 48.2082N, 16.3738E, a derelict wing of Vienna's historic sewer laboratory, long closed after flood damage. "He chose the city's underbelly," Langley said, "because that's where invisible poisons flow." He sealed the glove data, pocketed a fresh cord sampler, and met Kozar's gaze. "You wanted to finish the antidote? Pack your portable NMR. You're coming with me." Kozar stood, coffee forgotten. "I'm not a field agent." "Today," Langley said, "you're the difference between 48 hours and a funeral." They crossed the quarantine line as sirens peeled down Kartnerstrasse. Langley felt the stolen vial in his coat clink softly, a morbid metronome marking Vienna's ticking heart. Chapter 3, Encoded Spectra. A slate-gray dawn slid into full daylight by the time Langley's unmarked van rumbled to a halt on Weibergasse, above a wrought iron grate that led to Vienna's 19th century storm sewer network. The street cafes were only just unfolding parasols, unaware that beneath their cobblestones a kidnapping laboratory thrummed like a clandestine heart. Dr. Lily Kozar shouldered a slim case containing an ultra-portable 60 MHz NMR spectrometer, no larger than a toaster. "Your coordinates drop us 4 meters below," she said, checking her phone's LiDAR overlay. "Flooding closed this tunnel after the 2006 Danube surge. We'll need waiters." Langley clicked on a headlamp, trench coat rustling. "Chemistry first, comfort later. 1. Scent of ozone and steel. The descent reeked of rust and stagnant water. Yet another aroma soon overrode it. The crisp, ionized tang they come to associate with Tdx-M. Langley's handheld gas detector chirped quietly, marking parts per billion spikes. A junction chamber opened before them. Brick archways, ankle-deep murk swirling around derelict pumps. At its center squatted a cube of stainless steel lab benches wired to a petrol generator. Blue LEDs cast spectral ripples across the water-slick walls. Kozar exhaled. Someone built a clean bench in a cesspit, where better to hide a poison without markers. Langley replied. 2. The cipher console. A ruggedized laptop blinked on the bench, demanding a 10-character passphrase. Beside it lay a digital NMR printout, identical to the sheet left in the conference hall, except that the noise peaks were slightly shifted. Langley laid both Spectra side by side, overlaying them on the laptop's touchscreen. Look, each anomalous peak moves either upfield or downfield by precisely 0.12 ppm, or dash and Morse, depending on direction. They transcribed, SCHULZ. Schultz, 6 characters. Kozar counted, but we need 10. Langley slid the phthalocyanine-stained glove from a sample pouch. A second spectrum, taken from its die, overlapped the first, completing the code with 4 new shifts. 324B. Passphrase, Schultz 324B. The laptop unlocked, revealing a live telemetry feed. Cryo chamber 324. B. Temp. For degrees Celsius. Occupant. 1 vital sign stable. A countdown blinked at 17 minutes and 36 seconds. Minutes until an automatic purge of refrigerated air. Purge. Kozar knew meant aerosol as toxin. 3. Phthalocyanine breadcrumbs. Langley traced a thin hose leading away from the generator bay. Its joints fluorescing faint indigo where phthalocyanine dye leaked. Breadcrumbs, he muttered. Schultz must have sabotaged his own kidnapper. Left a tracer only UV could reveal. They followed the hose through a service hatch into a refrigerated annex. Frost slicked the pipes. Coils hissed with coolant. In the center stood a coffin-sized cryo chamber, viewing port fogged. On its control panel, a handwritten sticker read, "Physician, do no harm." Kozar shivered. That's his motto. But another label, recent and sharp, warned, "Door breach triggers Tdx-M aerosol." A score of quarter-liter glass bulbs, each the size of a Christmas ornament, were wired to a pressure switch on the chamber seal. 4. Chemistry versus clock. The purge timer showed 11:22. Kozar fired up a portable NMR, cradling a syringe of clear solution. Meberdine ACT4, the missing antidote. If we inject it into the chamber's recirc line, we can neutralize any Tdx-M before it reaches lethal vapor density. Langley knelt by the pressure switch. The wiring harness glowed faint violet. It too had been dusted with phthalocyanine. "Follow the dye," he whispered, clipping on insulated tweezers. He bridged 2 wires with graphite pencil core. The circuit simulator on the laptop confirmed bypass achieved. Timer, 5:04. Kozar stabbed the recirc port. The chamber's internal sensors registered rising pH as the antidote mixed. A new reading flashed, neurotoxin activity, LOD. Timer froze at 3:17. Display turning green. Langley cracked the door. A plume of cold air spilled out, but no violet shimmer of toxin followed. Inside, Professor Schultz lay unconscious, oxygen mass frosting with each slow breath. His wrists were zip-tied but uninjured. Langley lifted him onto a gurney parked by the annex door. "Heartbeat steady," Kozar confirmed, relief quivering through her words. "We did it." Langley wasn't smiling. He stared at the laptop feed, now overridden, its screen filled with a single line of text. "Round 2 begins at sunset. W.H." "Wolfgang Heinitz," Langley growled. "He's taunting us." Sirens echoed faintly through the tunnel. The Vienna PD response team finally closing in. Langley clicked his watch recorder. Detain all conference personnel, especially Heinitz. We have the professor, but the antagonist still holds a formula. He turned to Kozar. Recharge your NMR. We'll need it before the sun goes down. Above them, city bells tolled 10 a.m., yet the detective felt the day had already slipped to dusk. Chapter 4, The Violet Reaction. Wind hissed through the sewer grates when Langley, Kozar, and a Vienna PD hazmat duo hauled Professor Schultz topside, but rescue was only half the equation. They still lacked court-solid proof that Tdx-M existed and that Wolfgang Heinitz held the formula. Langley commandeered an empty forensic trailer behind a cordon line, converting it into a pop-up microlab. On the stainless bench, he arranged 3 objects. 1, 5 milliliters of seized Tdx-M headspace condensate, captured in a siliconized microampoule. 2, a single phthalocyanine-dusted crystal scraped from the cryo-chamber wiring. 3, Meberdine ACT for the antidote, refrigerated but intact. We need a fingerprint reaction, he told Kozar, pulling on nitrile gloves. Something color-shifting, instant, and impossible to replicate without the real toxin. Kozar's eyes lit. Udashi, Lenka catalytic loop. Add a guanidinium neurotoxin to orthoaminobenzaldehyde and alkaline methanol. If the amine is metamethylated, the mixture flashes violet for exactly 3 seconds before clearing. Classic undergraduate demo. But Tdx-MS modified ring should intensify the chromophore tenfold. Langley grinned. A color you can't Photoshop. 1-pot microcent. They jury-rigged a glass microreactor from a 0.5 ml GC vial, fitted with a pressure relief needle. Kozar introduced 2 L of the seized condensate. Langley followed with 100 L of freshly prepared orthoaminobenzaldehyde base. The hazmat officers killed the trailer lights. The vial glowed a faint aquamarine under the LEDs, then burst into an incandescent violet bloom, bright as an arc weld, before fading to colorless, exactly 3.2 S. The officers stared, stunned. Textbook positive, Kozar whispered, starting the stopwatch just to be sure. No natural tetrodotoxin does that. Langley pipetted the now colorless product onto a silica mini TLC plate. Under UV, it fluoresced a royal purple streak, a stable chromophore they could scrape and deliver to the evidence locker. 2, the public demonstration. At 1400 hours, the symposium's main auditorium, still ringed with police. Filled again, this time with delegates, law enforcement, and live news feeds. Langley stepped onto the same oak lectern where Schultz had disappeared. A fresh vial of the orthoaminobenzaldehyde. Mick stood beside an evidence camera. Science, he announced, voice carrying across the hushed hall, doesn't hide in shadows. He unstoppered the confiscated Tdx-M ampoule, angled it for crowd, and let 2 droplets fall. A collective gasp rippled as the mixture blazed violet, bathing the chandeliers for a heartbeat before clearing. The reaction looped in slow-motion replay on the overhead screens. Only a methyl-bridged tetrodotoxin analog produces at transient violet, Langley explained. Its inventor is here today. Spotlights panned, murmurs swelled. Wolfgang Heinitz, sweating beneath the glare, attempted to leave his VIP row. Kozar triggered a portable ozone sniffer. Its alarm shrilled, pointing directly to Heinitz's briefcase. Officers closed in. Inside they found a second Tdx-M vial, label minted with a pharma patent logo. Printed NDAs tying a shell company to a biotech giant in Zurich. An encrypted USB, later revealed to hold full synthesis instructions and dosing studies. 3. Chain reaction of truth. Heinitz protested, claiming the color change was staged. Langley calmly repeated the test with a random chemist's personal chloroform sample. No color. The auditorium erupted in applause and outrage. Evidence cameras recorded every frame. Professor Schultz, revived and escorted by medics to a balcony seat, managed a thin smile. Dr. Kozar, he croaked, remind me never to underrate introductory lab tricks. Langley sealed the violet TLC strip, in an evidence pouch. Sometimes, he said, truth is most visible when it vanishes fastest. As officers led Heinitz away, sunlight slanted through stained glass, igniting residual phthalocyanine dust in midair, tiny sparks that faded like the last notes of a requiem. Yet Langley felt no triumph. Formulas leak, black markets thirst, and chemistry's darkest colors rarely stay bottled for long. He looked at Kozar. Round 2 is over, but the game runs deeper. Ready for Chapter 6? She exhaled, relief and resolve intermingling. Load the spectrometer, detective. Let's make sure there's no black phosphine waiting in Berlin. Chapter 5, Trap for the Falsifier. Wolfgang Heinitz's arrest should have ended the affair. Yet within 3 hours of the Violet Flash demonstration, a slick corporate attorney produced an injunction. Without an unbroken chain of custody for the seized vial, the evidence was theatrical at best. The court released Heinitz under house monitoring, but Langley knew the man would never risk storing Tdx-M at home. He'll try to erase every trace before we can lock him in a cleaner cell, Langley muttered, pacing the mobile command tent behind the symposium hall. So we give him something irresistible to erase. 1. A bait he cannot resist. Langley filmed a short, deliberately wobbly video on an old phone, a gloved hand pouring a supposedly fresh batch of Meberdine ACT, for into a beaker of Tdx-M, captioned Antidote Synthesis Complete. Public release tonight. Dr. Kozar then posted the clip to a private chemist forum she knew Heinitz monitored. Within 10 minutes, a sock puppet account will ask for the location of our final validation run, Kozar predicted. 9 minutes 32 seconds later, the message arrived, along with an encrypted invitation to meet in an abandoned wing of the Alti gaswork, Vienna's disused gasworks complex. Perfect. The site's cavernous retort halls were riddled with manganese-soaked bricks that would scrub ozone from the air, masking Tdx-M's telltale scent. 2. Setting the chemical snare. Langley's team arrived first, planting ultrafine IR trip lines and one crucial prop, a 3-neck flask on a rusted workbench, bubbler gurgling, violet-tinted liquid swirling under a low flame. But the antidote inside was a decoy just buffered methanol spiked with p-dimethylaminobenzaldehyde. The trick? Tdx-MS vapor, even at ppm levels, reacts with that aldehyde to form leucocrystal violet, invisible until oxidized. One flash of strong light, and the spill would blossom into permanent royal purple fingerprints. Kozar taped a halide flood lamp to a ceiling girder, wiring it to a pressure mat beneath the workbench. When anyone lifted the flask, the mat would flip the lamp on, photographing the crime in pigment. 3. The falsifier walks in. At 21:14, the main door creaked open. Heinitz stepped in, ankle monitor flashing red with each stride, trailed by 2 heavies in laboratory coveralls. Langley and Kozar watched from a darkened mezzanine through thermal goggles. Heinitz, whispering, "No police." "Good. Heavy number 1. Bag it and smash the rest?" Heinitz, "No. First verify it's a real antidote. If Schultz recovered, they must have finished the binding protein blocker." He lifted the flask. Click. The flood lamp blazed. Vapor around the neck of the flask met the aldehyde and oxidized instantaneously. In cascading waves, a colorless mist condensed into vivid purple streaks, down Heinitz's gloves, across his wrists, splattering the face shield of heavy number 1 like ultraviolet ink. Panic surged. The men dropped the flask, but the violet stain only intensified as liquid fanned across the bench. Cameras hidden in the rafters captured every frame, time-stamped and network synced to the symposium's forensic database. Langley's voice boomed through a PA speaker. "Ultraviolet crystal violet adduct. Irreversible Wolfgang. Your hands will stay royal purple for 72 hours, long enough for every magistrate in Austria to sign a warrant." Police spotlights cut through shattered windows. Tactical teams rappelled in. The heavies surrendered. Heinitz bolted toward a side exit, but slipped on the spreading dye, leaving a neon trail as unmistakable as a comet's tail. Officers pinned him beside a moth-eaten generator. 4. Admitting the formula. In the on-site interrogation pod Heinitz, now sporting purple forearms that look sculpted from amethyst, tried bargaining. You want the lab notebooks? The whole synthetic pathway? Immunity, and I hand them over. Langley shook his head. Your formula's obsolete. Kozar and I derived a one-pot hydrolysis that collapses Tdx-M to inert urea in 60 seconds. Publish and destroy. You've lost your leverage. Heinitz's shoulders sagged. The dye on his gloves deepened as sweat seeped through. Then at least, don't let Zurich take the patent. Burn it. We already did, Kozar said, sliding a shredded NDA across the table. Science doesn't patent murder. 5. Resetting the clock. Back at the hospital, Professor Schultz finally opened his eyes. Violet bruises rimmed his throat where the respirator straps had sat, but when he saw Kozar, he managed a faint chuckle. Purple really is our lucky color. Langley checked his watch. 47 hours, 56 minutes since the symposium attack. The case had landed 4 minutes under the 48-hour wire. Rest, he told Schultz. Vienna's safe for now, but the next monster's already pacing Berlin with something called black phosphine. Schultz tried to sit up, then go. Chemistry never sleeps. Langley straightened his trench coat, its hem still flecked with stubborn violet dots, a badge of the night's deception. He tipped his hat to Kozar, packed the portable NMR. Dawn train departs in 90. Outside, rain began to fall, each droplet refracting street lamps into tiny purple flares, as if the city itself were signing their evidence log. Chapter 6. The 48th Hour. The minute hand crept toward noon as Langley and Kozar stood in Professor Schultz's ICU room. A heart rate graph pulsed green, steady at 64 BPM 47 hours 59 minutes since the attack. Outside the glass wall, a court-martial escorted Wolfgang Heinitz, still stained royal purple, to an armored van. Langley's satisfaction lasted 3 heartbeats. Then a faint ozone tang threaded the antiseptic air. "Smell that?" he asked. Kozar frowned. Like a summer storm, inside a sealed ward. A nurse wheeled in a fresh 4-bag labeled Celine. Lot 4B, GDC. The code rang in Langley's head. GDC, glutamate decarboxylase. The very enzyme that, when mixed with Tdx-M, liberated ozone as a byproduct. 1. Ozone in the ICU. Langley snatched the bag, inverted it under the ceiling lamp. No tint, no precipitate. Tdx-M stealth at work. He jabbed a syringe through the port and drew 2 milliliters of solution, handing it to Kozar. Within 60 seconds, her portable LCMS flashed red, M/E320, the killer's isotope pattern. The antidote vials they'd locked in the evidence fridge were gone. Someone had switched them while the arrest drama unfolded. "Inside job," Kozar hissed. Heinitz bought help and timed it to strike at exactly 48 hours, his twisted victory lap. 2. Flash synth antidote. The hospital's chemistry wing sat 3 floors below. Langley sprinted the stairs, trench coat flaring. In a negative pressure hood, he slammed down reagents. Morphine core, acrylate side chain methyl iodide cap, mebridine ACT, for normally took 8 hours. He had 8 minutes. Microwave flow reactor, 200 degrees Celsius, 150 seconds. A coil hissed superheated steam. Condensate drip bright amber into a centrifuge tube. He pulled a pH strip, 9.1 perfect. Quick HPLC check, greater than 94% purity. Kozar burst in, lugging 2 charcoal hemoperfusion cartridges. ICU vents already show rising ozone. We dose Schultz first. He's still the primary target. 3. Purple veins, violet justice. Back upstairs, ozone monitors squealed. Nurses evacuated adjacent bays. Langley plunged a 20-milliliter syringe of freshly made ACT 4 into the compromised 4 line. The drug met Tdx-M in Schultz's bloodstream. Reaction heat flushed Professor's cheeks violet for an instant, then drained away. Heart rate steadied. Alarms in the corridor grew louder. Other patients drips bore Lot 4B, GDC. Kozar snapped the charcoal cartridges into the ward's main vacuum return. Activated carbon would scavenge airborne toxin before it reached neonatal. 3 minutes to system purge, she warned. Plenty, Langley lied. He ducked into the nurse's anteroom, grabbed a UV diagnostic torch, and scanned the intravenous supply rack. The phthalocyanine tracer, Schultz's secret ally, flared indigo on one lone bag. Langley sliced it open and watched violet dye plume through the spill. The saboteur's fingerprint. Footsteps pounded. A resident in scrubs, the same junior tech who'd handled the symposium's projector, froze in the doorway, eyes widening at the glowing mess. Langley leveled the UV beam at his face. Flecks on the tech's mask lit up like a nebula. Round 2 is over, Langley said, cuffing the man with surgical tape. Tell Heinitz his clock stopped at 47:59. 4. Closing the loop. By 48 hours 7 minutes, every contaminated line lay in biohazard drums. Ozone levels read 0, and Vienna General lifted lockdown. Heinitz's attorney tried a last volley about police contamination, but video of the purple-stained accomplice rendered that moot. Professor Schultz, propped on pillows, managed a hoarse laugh. Saved twice in 2 days. Extravagant even for me. Langley shrugged. Chemistry's a jealous mistress. She demands overtime. Kozar checked her watch, 13:15. Train to Berlin leaves in 75 minutes. You still think black phosphine is real. Langley slipped a UV torch into his satchel, where it clinked against the quartz sampler. When murderers dream in color, we follow the spectrum. Phosphorus starts at white, ends at black. Every shade is a chapter. He tipped his hat to Schultz and strode toward the elevator, violet speckles on his coat cuff catching the fluorescent light like tiny galaxies. The hunt, as ever, continued. Epilogue, letter from Berlin. The westbound inner city rattled across the Danube, leaving Vienna's spires behind. Afternoon sun flashed off the river like molten mercury, glazing the carriage windows in strobing bands of light. Arthur Langley sat alone at a four-top table, trench coat folded beside a steaming cup of Schwarzer tea. Opposite him, Dr. Lily Kozar calibrated her travel-size NMR, the instrument soft mingling with the clatter of tracks. A conductor paused, handing Langley a cream-colored envelope embossed with an alchemical seal. 2 intertwined serpents around the staff of Asclepius. The postmark read Berlin Zentrum. Inside, on heavy rag paper, flowed precise fountain pen script. Detective Langley. I trust Tdx-M proved both instructive and entertaining. The molecules you chase are but shadows cast by a far brighter flame. Should your curiosity survive Vienna, meet me beneath the broken clock at Museum für Naturkunde, Berlin, 2100 hours tomorrow. Bring no police, only a mind eager for illumination. Ask the attendant for Schwarzer phosphine, a fellow student of the spectrum. Langley flipped the page. A single crystal fragment was taped beneath a strip of inert foil, midnight black, faceted like volcanic glass, yet warm to the touch. Under the carriage's yellow reading lamp, the shard pulsed with faint infrared luminescence, a property no allotrope of phosphorus should possess. Kozar leaned across, eyes widening. That's not red, white, or violet phosphorus. Its lattice is inverted. Langley slid the sample into a lead-lined capsule. If phosphine can be black, perhaps it can also be invisible. He pulled open his field journal, adding a fresh heading. Case number 5, black phosphine. Hypothesis, metastable allotropic phase. Emits IR when mechanically stimulated. Potential weapon, pyrophoric aerosol. Action items. 1. Verify crystal structure via synchrotron XRD. Request 2H beam time, Bessie 2. 2. Correlate Berlin Chemical Incident Archives for unexplained IR burns. 3. Map Museum for Naturkunde Subbasement. Locate broken clock. Kozar snapped her NMR shut with a decisive click. 20 hours to Berlin, 12 to prepare. Think it's a trap? Undoubtedly, Langley said, pocketing the capsule. But chemistry's riddles seldom crack themselves. Outside the window, the Austrian countryside blurred into emerald streaks. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a broken clock ticked toward 2100 hours, each silent beat forging a new equation of danger and discovery. Langley raised his teacup. The surface rippled. Tiny, perfect waves catching the dim carriage light. They glowed for an instant with a color that wasn't really a color at all, but a promise. The spectrum always runs deeper. Thank you for wandering through the quiet corridors of night chemistry. May the questions of the day dissolve like salt in still water, and may peaceful dreams form their own gentle equations. Until our next nocturnal experiment, sleep well and good night.